I've also pressed record on my laptop. So we're now recording. Welcome to Watch Moths October. This is part of a double bill, so we're here 8 till 9 this evening and then 8 till 9 in the morning to see what we've caught. Just to say that we are, I'm going to wait just a minute before I do all the kind of boring bit, because we've got quite a few people who are still arriving.
Yeah, it says there's another 13 people, but it might be.
I'd closed the waiting room, but I hadn't admitted the people in the waiting room. That doesn't help.
Lovely.
Woohoo, lots of people flooding in now. Very exciting. So welcome to those who have just joined us for Watch Moths October PM. So again, this is part of a double bill, so we'll be here this evening for the 2 hours and then back in the morning for the 2 hours. I think everybody's getting really quite used to Zoom by now, and the whole kind of etiquette and how it works. We are recording it, and we are also streaming it live on Facebook this evening. So for the majority of the evening, we'll be focusing in on our presenters, but at times we'll zoom out and have lots of all your lovely faces. If you would rather remain anonymous, then please turn off your video, which is down at the bottom left-hand side of most of the screens. Stop video. And you can also rename yourselves by going into participants or by going into the box with your face on it and clicking on the 3 little dots, and you can choose any name that you would like in there.
We have an interesting echo.
Yeah, I'm just going to mute all. Okay. So hopefully you can still hear me, and Naomi should be able to unmute.
There we are, I've unmuted.
Lovely. So just a repeat again, because we've had a couple more people join us in those last few minutes, that we are recording and we are live on Facebook. So if you would rather remain anonymous, then please change your name on your Zoom and turn off the video. And we look forward to an evening of moths, art and energy. And I'm going to, oh, hang on a minute, I've forgotten a couple of important things here. So down at the bottom of your screen, you've also got the chat function. You're all muted through the session, because I'm afraid otherwise it does get all a bit crazy and too busy. But you can chat through in the chat. Is there still an echo, or has that sorted itself out now? Good.
It's sorted itself out.
Thank goodness for that. So please pop any comments or questions in there. We'll be monitoring the chat as the evening goes on. And we've also got down the bottom, you've got some reactions, so you can give our mothers a round of applause, a thumbs up, a heart, some laughter, a wow, or some kind of a party popper, celebratory. In particular, that one comes in tomorrow when there's something particularly exciting found in traps, and it's always good to celebrate. It would be lovely to start off by popping, just as a test in the chat, where everyone's coming from this evening. And one of my jobs for tomorrow morning is I'm going to try and pop some dots on the map, and then tomorrow morning show you all the map of the UK and perhaps further beyond, for where we've got people joining us from this evening. Would be really interesting. So now I'm going to hand over to Naomi, who is our hostess for this evening.
Yeah, hello everybody. Welcome to Watch Moths 5, a very special event this evening, because this is the last one of 2020. And it's also special because we've got a whole load of other mothers from across Britain joining us this evening. Some of them are presenters and some of them are catching moths and will be letting us know what they find in the morning. Tonight, we're also going to concentrate a little bit more on the seasons. So it's autumn now and it's going to become winter. And for that period before we may see you again, the energy is, it's cold. And how do moths live through the cold? Different life cycles, woolly jumpers, I don't know. And also we'll be thinking about how humans live through the winter as well. We want to celebrate energy systems, ecosystems, art, the way everything's interconnected on the planet. And we are the Art and Energy Collective. There's myself, the people who are presenting today. There's myself, there's Chloe. Hello, Chloe, if you're there. And Jenny. The three of us.
Hey, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Hi, Chloe. So the three of us, a part of the Art and Energy Collective, are presenting tonight. And we are just three, but there are also, in addition to us out there, there are technicians, there are researchers, there are engineers, and we all work creatively in the face of the climate emergency, and also making art, making positive ways people can get engaged with renewable energy. Now, tonight is actually funded by the Arts Council and also the Plymouth Energy Community. So the Plymouth Energy Community are going to be talking to us later about how they work with communities during the winter. So we have been working with Watch Moths because it is part of a larger project. It's one of the elements of a larger project called Moths to a Flame. And Moths to a Flame was actually going to be present in Glasgow in about 3 weeks' time for the COP26, the United Nations Climate Change Conference. And so we hoped to be going to that, but of course COVID happened and everything stopped for a bit, and it might be happening in a year's time. But this is another reason why we wanted to make this particular Watch Moths cover the whole of Britain if we could, because we were sort of imagining a flight path from Cornwall up to Glasgow to represent moths and to represent our urgency, our need to be more active in the face of climate change, to protect nature and to better understand the energy systems and the natural energy that exists in Britain or around the planet. So there's a lot of you, and I know you're very, I can just see the chat and I can see that you're beginning to comment, which is really nice. But if any of you out there are actually running a trap tonight, can you put your thumbs up, and then everybody gets a sense of whether there's half a dozen or 20 odd traps going on at the same time this evening. So remember to chat on the chat function, as Jenny said.
We've got quite a few thumbs up.
Great, great. Well, that's absolutely brilliant. Let us know where you are, and I'll try and remember to remind you at the end of this session and at the end of tomorrow's session, but it would be fantastic if you could send us a list of the moths that you find overnight. Doesn't have to be all of them, doesn't have to be super scientific, but we would like to know what moths are found, and it might come in our installations that we make next year, and the poetry that's written, it might be really useful in a number of different ways. So that'd be fantastic. Right, I think we're ready now to start our flight. Is everybody sitting comfortably in this mothy aeroplane?
Yes.
Yes.
Exits are here and here.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, we're starting off in Cornwall, where Dave Hodgson has kindly agreed to let us know what he's up to there. I think I'll let you introduce yourself, Dave, and tell us a little bit about what you're up to in Cornwall and what you're doing this evening.
Okay, thanks, Naomi, and hi everybody. Welcome to this event. This is quite unusual for me. It's Friday. I finished work. I could smell the wine, but of course I had to stay off it so that I could speak sensibly to all of you. I'm an ecologist. I'm a professor of ecology with the University of Exeter, but the University of Exeter unusually has a campus in Penryn in Cornwall. I'm the director of the Centre for Ecology and Conservation. So this is, we're only about 15 years old, this centre, but we've grown into one of the largest departments of whole organism biologists in the UK, and and we think we rival some of the biggest in the world as well. So we have behavioral ecologists and evolutionary biologists and zoologists and ecologists and human scientists. So I'm super proud to be director of that incredible group of scientists. My link to I spend my days really crunching numbers and doing mathematical modeling of natural systems, but I've got this boy still in me from my childhood that was obsessed with natural history, and so whenever I can, I take students into the field and show them the natural world, and then in my other spare time, I birdwatch and I walk the dog, and this year in particular, through lockdown, I've been trapping moths in my garden in central Falmouth.
It's in the middle of town.
Yeah, so we might hear a train going past. I think we've bagged the last large garden in the centre of Falmouth. So I've got 3 really nice big lime trees and a yew tree. I'll hopefully take you down to the trap in a second and show you where it's situated. But it looks south. There's an open patch of sky to the south, and that heads out almost directly to the coast. It must be only a couple of 100 meters away. So I like to think that it's drawing the moths in from the continent and across the channel. There's a train going past now.
Oh, good. So are you gonna show us your trap?
Oh, would you like me to? Oh, shall I walk you down? So this is the risky bit, isn't it? Because you might lose me. You might lose me. I'll be moving further and further away from the house, and I'm hoping Misty will come with us as well. Misty's the dog. No, she's vanished. She's got all camera shy.
Oh.
So we'll see how this goes. The laptop screen will cast its pallor across my face.
Yeah.
So we're heading down the garden path. I'm taking you down the garden path
So far, so good, Richard. You're still there.
Instead of leading you up it. And so if I just turn around now, so there we go.
Oh, well done.
There's the Robinson trap and the goalpost in the background that the boys like to try and smash my bulb with.
Yeah.
I won't. So I think the trap's probably going to wash you out, but I just wonder whether it's going to show any of the light in the garden, because it's pretty fabulous the way that it lights up the lime trees around me, and it creates this kind of spooky dell. So it's played host to some pipistrelle bats through the season, and really this is the thing that's been keeping me sane and getting me up every morning all the way since March, almost every morning.
All right. So and have you got quite a lot of you said earlier when I talked to you last week that quite a lot of your students actually have been following what you found on the trap?
So people in the department, I think, have been sort of kind of grasping onto these sort of groundings that we've had through the season. So several people in the department have been doing things natural history, and I think by posting them on social media, it's been part of the glue that has held. There's Misty. It's part of the glue that has held the department together, even though we've been home working and separated. You know, we're talking in the order of 400 to 500 people. Yeah. How do we keep them together? And this daily natural history social media extravaganza, I think, has really helped us, actually.
That sounds fantastic. And with your team, in addition to your moths, in the research that you're doing, you've got you've probably just got a minute or two, but the research is about light frequency in insects. Did you say?
Yes. Well, I think if you bring together 60 academics who do ecology, then among that 60, some of them are going to be working on light and energy and its relationship with the natural world. So just picking on something I was involved in a few years ago, myself and Richard French Constant were working with a PhD student, looking at frequencies of light motivated by changes in wavelengths of light of street lights. And asking the question, well, what will it change? What will it change from a halogen lamp to an LED set of streetlights? What will that do to the moth assemblage? So we set up replicate lights of different wavelengths and monitored them through a couple of seasons to see what happened. And it's quite dramatic, actually. So generally, shorter wavelength light into the UV spectrum tends to attract more moths. So there's a hint there that a change to LED street lighting, although using less energy, could actually be attracting more moths into those areas, for better or worse. But also, interestingly, low frequency light was extremely attractive to noctuid moths, which are the big hairy large group of species that we get among our macro moths, but was less attractive to our geometrids, to the loopers. So it doesn't just change the amount of moths coming to light, but it changes the shape and diversity of the assemblage of moths that come in as well.
Oh, right, yeah, that's interesting. And so on the campus, are you aiming to change the light frequency of the lights there, or?
Well, I mean, results like that actually make us a little bit unsure about what we should do. I mean, I would prefer to have a campus that was in total natural darkness at night, and so that nature could do its normal thing. But of course, we can't do that because we have the safety of a couple of thousand students to think about as well, and we can't have them stumbling around in the dark. I think it's quite complicated to predict or to actually say what should we do. Probably the first port of call is to reduce our energy use, and that should favor LED and other low forms of energy. But if that means that we are harming the the resilience or the stability of the mini beast communities on campus, then we have to think about that as well. So it's not an easy decision.
No. Well, good luck with your decision, and thank you for showing us your big lime trees and the moth trap down in the garden, and Misty as well.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's great, and we look forward to seeing you in the morning, Dave. And any questions you have for Dave, remember the chat show, the chat function. You can ask and he'll respond as necessary. And we will now, I think, fly up to Devon to Simon and see Simon. Now, you sent us a little film. Good evening.
I have, but just give me
like
a minute.
Morning film or an evening film?
It's a film that I took this morning, actually, at Stoke Woods on the edge of Exeter, where I ran the trap last night because the weather was so fantastic. But what I thought I would do, I'm running my trap in a smaller woodland on the edge of Exeter tonight. So I thought I'd compare and contrast what we find between the two sites.
All right, good.
So just give me 1 minute, and then Jenny, if you could play my video. Hi everybody, I'm Simon from Exeter, and I was looking at my notebook, and this time 16 years ago, I was at Salcombe at the National Trust place there, Overbecks, and I ran my moth trap there at the end of October, and my notes told me that it was a misty, very mild evening, so really good for moths. And I had a couple of migrant moths, something called the pearly underwing, and another thing called the cosmopolitan, which some of the folks that are down Falmouth Way, Dave, and other people, Penzance, they may turn up something like that overnight tonight. So in Exeter tonight, we've got a half moon. It's probably going to be a little bit colder than it was last night. So we will see what we get. But last night I ran my trap in Stoke Woods, woodland site. And Jenny, yes, if you could play this and I'll talk over it. So I'm doing a John Walters here. So this is the woodland site, and you can see it's got holly, and it's got this nice plant called woodruff, which is an ancient woodland plant. So that is telling us that this woodland has been here for at least 400 years. It's got some beech trees, it's got oak trees, there is a bit of conifer as well, and there's some hazel. And that was the trap this morning when I came to have a look to see what goodies I'd found. And the goodies that I found were huge numbers of the November moths, which are these sort of grey things. In fact, there were 40 of these moths in the trap. There's a satellite there at the top with the white spots on its wing. These are more of the November moths.
They're amazing, Simon. So why do they fly about in crowds?
Just zooming in on one of the stars of the autumn, a green brindled crescent, which just popped on the trunk here, and it shows how camouflaged it is. Actually, the quality is not brilliant, so I apologise on this film. This is a barred sallow. So a lot of the autumn moths are indeed the colours of the autumn leaves, bronze, like these feathered thorns here, yellows of the sallow moths, and we've got something called a grey-shouldered knot here, and this is it hiding on a trunk. It's got some beautiful black antler-like marks. This is back to the feathered thorn, which has got, this is a male with some punky antennae. And then somebody said that they'd got a merveille de jour. So this is a merveille de jour, an absolutely stunning moth to find. And then we've got a chestnut. So again, continuing that theme. And there's the satellite again with the glowing white spots on its wings. So those are some of the things that I found last night in Stoke Woods. And we'll see what I can turn up in a comparison woodland, which is not as large and it's not as old. So I wouldn't expect to find the diversity that I found last night, but we'll see.
That's brilliant. Thanks.
And sorry, Naomi, what was your question?
Yeah, I was just asking about, you know, how you said you've got 40 of those November moths, and I just think, are they often in groups like that? I'm trying to think of the name for a group of butterflies. I mean, it could a whisper of moths.
A whisper,
you get
yeah,
a whisper of 40 moths quite often.
Well, they are very prevalent in the autumn, and they're a very common moth. In fact, there's several different types of these autumnal moths, but you can only really distinguish them by looking at their genitalia, which is not something I'm generally into.
No.
But yeah, they're very common, and they feed on lots of different broadleaf trees. And the conditions were perfect for them last night. So, and there was a mixture of you know, males and females. So males being attracted to females in the trap.
Right, that's great. Thank you. Well, we'll see you in the morning. But again, if people have questions for Simon on the chat, keep the chat going, and that's great.
Naomi, can I just interrupt and say the merveille de jour in particular has had quite a lot of conversation about it, and Vivian had one apparently earlier on her trouser leg when she went out to check her moth trap, but David said that he's been hunting for almost a decade and still hasn't found one of those, so they're envious. He's envious, Simon.
Yeah, I think it's moth envy tonight. I think we're now going to be going to Dave Barker. Well, Dave Barker's film, actually. Dave has got stuck where he's working a bit too far away to get back home for this. So he sent us a film. He quite often presents with us, and he lives on a farm, and he's going to talk about the energy in the landscape, as well as stuff about moth traps. So we're looking forward to hearing from him.
Okay, hi everybody, Dave here again. I've just checked our sheep on the land here, and I'm about to just go down and set up my moth trap for a couple of nights. So let's go and do that. And on the way, I thought I'd talk a little bit more about the energy flow on the land, and where I got to last time, and fundamentally what's happening now this time of year. So it's autumn now, coming into winter, and as you can tell, everything's starting to slow down. But what does that slowing down mean for the energy on the land? And you know, where's all that energy from the summer gone? So let's just take an example of an oak tree maybe, okay? So over the spring and summer, there's been more and more sunlight and more energy hitting the ground. There's been water and rain going into the soil, and through the lovely process of photosynthesis, the tree has been growing. So it's been using all that free energy from the sun to lay down more wood and to grow stronger and taller and wider. And over the late summer, it's put a lot of that energy into producing acorns. And those acorns are obviously the tree seeds, and those acorns themselves are packed full of energy, and that energy resource has been used by many an animal. So here on the farm we have lots of jays, so the jays have been feeding on them and also gathering them and storing them for the winter. So the squirrels doing the same job. All the pigeons have been feasting on the acorns in the trees, and then all the acorns that have dropped on the ground, they're just a feast for animals. So there you have one energy flow from the tree. That's all gone into things to grow and survive and thrive on the land. Now, obviously, the trees are changing colour, and during the winter they drop their leaves. And so why do trees drop their leaves? This is another sort of flow that we can experience. So I don't know if people have really thought about this. Why do trees shed and drop their leaves? But in this temperate zone on the planet, we're historically, over the winter it gets quite cold, and the water in the groundwater will freeze at some point. And this is a bit of a problem for many plants and tree species, because if the water freezes and they can't actually get any water from the soil, and they're still transpiring through the leaves, the tree itself will dehydrate and die. So deciduous trees, the trees that drop leaves, they get over this problem by getting rid of their leaves, and therefore the transpiration doesn't happen anymore, and they won't dehydrate and die. So that's the main purpose there. So all the leaves are dropping off the trees and going onto the ground. And last time I talked about decomposers. So we have all the decomposers in the soil, the bacteria and all the fungi and all the mites and nematodes and protozoa and all these sort of mini beasts that live in their millions in the soil. They'll be decomposing all this vegetable matter and break them down to essential minerals and such, and then the tree will be using those again in the future, come next spring and summer. So that's the main energy flow that's happening on the land now. Obviously, yeah, all the lovely shrubs are producing berries, as I said before, the nuts. So there's a feast going on at the moment, and all the animals are using that lovely natural bounty to fatten up over the winter, and using those fat reserves, yet again energy, to see them through until next spring. Okay, so hopefully that helps. I'm now going to be going in to this tree line behind me and setting up the moth trap, and then hopefully I'll be joining you on Friday and Saturday, and we can see what I found. Okay, hope that helps. Okay, bye-bye.
Great. We asked Dave to concentrate on a bit more about the energy flow in the landscape. It connects all that we're doing together, and it was good to see and think about the fruiting trees and the way the leaves are dropping off, and the whole cycle starting again in the spring. So thank you to Dave. And continuing, but more on a moth and insect sort of way of talking about winter and energy flow, we're going to move on to John Walters now, also in Devon. Hello, John.
Hi there. Hi, Naomi.
Hey, how are you doing? Hello.
I'm fine, thanks.
Good.
Yeah, I've been.
What have you been up to then? And
today, well, I was actually this afternoon. I went out looking for a very rare moth. I didn't find it, but you have to try. I went down to Start Point because there's been a lot of crimson speckled moths which came in with the southerly winds. There were quite a few seen on the Lizard yesterday, so I thought I'd chance it and have a wander around Start Point and see if I could find some. I found a few migrant moths, the little rusty dot pearl moths and other moths like that, but not the crimson speckled moth. But it was worth the go, and it was a nice little walk anyway.
Yeah, and so are you secretly, I don't know whether all mothers are like this, but are you secretly the equivalent of a bird twitcher then?
Well, I'm a bit of a bird twitcher in art as well. I used to be a mad bird twitcher, but now I'm I like to see it's good fun to see some of these exciting moths when they turn up.
Yeah.
I did get a locust a few years ago. I was looking for locusts as well because they sometimes turn up, and I did luckily see a migratory locust 2 or 3 years ago. So it's fun to see things that should come from so far away.
Yeah. Okay, and what have you got to show us this evening?
I've got a little film about tomorrow I'm going to show you some of the moths I caught last night in a film, but tonight I'm just going to talk to you about some moths overwintering and also moths which fly in the winter as well. So I've got a little film. I think Jenny's got it to switch on. It's a little 5-minute film just to talk about some of the ways moths overwinter. And then
I didn't get anything from you this evening, John. I only got one for tomorrow morning.
Oh, right. Oh, did you not get that? Oh, I did send them both.
Tell you what, you guys talk just for a minute and I'll have another double check it's not in my downloads and hidden.
I think, it did get sent to you.
Don't worry, we'll find it. This is what we like about our live shows.
Makeup. I can talk you through it, but
what moths were you filming?
Well, what I was talking about was first of all, I was going to show you the caterpillars that you gave me, the moth caterpillars, which Naomi found the caterpillar and reared through got some eggs. So I've got those out in the garden and just showing you how I overwinter those, because they're actually as caterpillars, so they just sit on a twig right through the winter. So I've got those in a little net sleeve in the garden. And then I've got some other things which I've got around the garden. So I've got some lappet moth caterpillars, which hoping to show you a picture of them, because they just sit on a blackthorn twig right through the winter. And they're so camouflaged that you just can hardly see the things that they're all in a pot in the garden as well.
If I can just interrupt, I've just found it. I'm sorry, John. For some reason, one downloaded and the other didn't. So it's downloading, but it's going to take a minute or so. May I propose that we skip on to Claire at PEC and then come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll move on to Claire, who is in Plymouth. So we're still in the Devon area, so it all makes total geographic sense. And Claire, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
So hello to Claire, and you were going to let us know a bit about what you do during the winter, specifically about energy and keeping people warm and healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about energy flow, isn't it? And how things survive the winter. It's specifically about moths at the moment, but a lot of the work we do at Plymouth Energy Community is helping people survive the winter. And I know we were talking, weren't we, Naomi, about there's similarity between what we do to make yourself cozy and comfy in winter and cocooning, just storing yourself ready for when the spring bulbs come up and we're all good to go again.
Yeah.
We've helped thousands of households in Plymouth, and talking about the energy system, it's not working that well at the moment. I think it's really interesting, some of the chats that we started earlier about LEDs and their effect on moths and the world around us, and energy affects us too. And we are in the middle of a climate emergency, and we are trying to do our very best, but you're quite right, it's complex. It's really difficult to find the right way to act, which is one of the reasons that the Art and Energy Collective and Plymouth Energy Community came together. because we thought we needed a bit of positivity and we do some exploring and the like. So I thought, as part of this, because I'm no moth expert, I'm learning from all of you this evening, but you know, I know a bit about energy and how to help people stay warm and how you can prepare yourself in your own little cocoon over winter so that you can survive as best you can. And I know we're all using loads of energy at the moment because we're all pretty much, I think we can assume that a lot of us are at home, and we're most certainly having to tweak up the heating dial at the moment because winter is definitely here.
Yeah. And you have a whole load of advisors, don't you, at Plymouth Energy Community that go out and support people to find the most efficient, best way of heating their homes and things, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We do that in a number of ways. So we have a team of advisors, and all the advice and the support that we give is free. You know, we're not paid for any of that. We're a charity. And we can help anyone that rings in, actually. If there's an energy issue, we'll help you and advise as best we can. But also for people who are living in more vulnerable circumstances, we can do really long-term work to help people become more confident and more resilient. So you're able to manage your own circumstances better, and you're living in better circumstances by the time we finish supporting you. So we've this year, well, since lockdown, for example, it's about 550 households we've helped in that way. And that may go on for a year, it may go on for 18 months, it may just be a few weeks, but energy is really complicated. If you've ever tried to talk to your energy supplier, you'll know that. And so sometimes it's just nice to have someone alongside you as opposed to trying to have to fight your own battles all the time. It can give you the confidence to carry on.
Yeah.
I suppose the thing I wanted to do, and what I might do for the morning, if that's okay, if I get everybody's location, I'll try and find similar agencies that do what we do in your areas, just in case you know anybody or neighbours or family or friends that you think will benefit from that kind of work.
Yeah.
And then just quickly, if you don't mind, I'll give you a little mnemonic. This is what we use when we talk to groups and frontline workers about energy. And that we teach people, we explain to people how you can fill your cup, and we use cup because it stands for things. So the C for cup is claim what you're entitled to. I'm just going to say some keywords, things you should be looking out for at this time of year. The warm home discount. Some people get it automatically if you're on pension credit. You may be part of the broader group, in which case you have some vulnerabilities that will allow you access to £140 towards your energy bill this winter. Only certain suppliers have to give it. I'm going to pop a link in the chat that will tell you exactly who those suppliers are, so you can have a look at that. The priority service register, again, if you have, I call them vulnerabilities in the house, but it's just circumstances that mean you need extra assistance. It can be anything from a broken leg, a temporary condition, pregnancy, all the way through to having English as a second language. And it entitles you to extra level of help. Now, the priority service register is with both your grid provider, so Western Power Distribution for us, and also with your energy supplier. If you tell one, they're supposed to tell the other. It's always worth going on there. And top tip, reason why, you often get a special phone number that you can call up, which means you don't end up in the middle of a call centre and you get a much better class of service. So I'd recommend anyone to do that. Green Homes grant vouchers, you'll have heard of those. If you've tinkered with them, you may be able to use them well. There's a lack of contractors around the country at the moment. It's worth looking at, up to £5,000 to make your home more energy efficient, 10,000 if you're on qualifying benefits. So that's C, claim what you're entitled to. The U for CUP stands for use your energy wisely. And that's all about not wasting. So it drives us mad when we hear people say, oh, you just turn your thermostat down by 1 degree. For us, if we're talking about energy flow, heat is part of staying well for an awful lot of people, especially if you've got long-term conditions. So it's better to stop waste. So have a look at that. Electric showers, super expensive. Have a shower, don't have a Hollywood shower. Half loads of washing machines, they're pricey too. So are full kettles. Draft exclude if you can. If you've got TRVs, which are thermostatic radiator valves, the bottom of your radiators, use them. If you're not often in that room, turn it down a bit. You probably don't need to heat the whole house. So that's about using energy wisely. And the last one, and I promise we'll be back to moths. is pay less for what you need. So you need energy. It's essential. It is part of our life force and it's part of our energy flow. You need to use it. We are not in an energy system that recognizes that as a human need at the moment. And so in the meantime, pay the least you can for the energy that you have. And that might mean switching. Get advice if you don't know who to switch to. And if you don't want to switch because you like the customer service where you are and you're happy where you are, give them a ring and ask them if you're on the lowest tariff. But that's a no hassle way of saving some money, and I think we're probably all looking to do a bit of that at the moment with increasing food bills and energy bills. Let's go back to mothing now. Happy cocooning.
It's good. Yeah, well, thank you very much. But it slips very nicely, thinking about how humans survive the winter, it slips very nicely back to John for his film. And thank you, Claire. And she's promised to provide advice to us all tomorrow as to where to go, so we'll hold her to that. Hello, John. Back to Moths.
That's all right.
But still relating to energy, we'll play your film.
Okay, yeah, I'll talk you through. So, as I was saying before, these are some caterpillars which Naomi sent me, which are Okega moths. So these ones will overwinter as not half-grown or not quite half-grown caterpillars, and they'll just sit on the twigs right through the winter, as do these lappet moth caterpillars. And you can see there, if you can see it, they're so camouflaged, it just melds into the background there, and it will just sit there right through the winter until the leaves come out. And then eventually they turn into this quite a big moth, a great big lappet moth, huge thing. It just looks like a leaf. Others overwinter as eggs. These are some lackey moths. These are the caterpillars just hatching out in the spring after the winter as eggs. And this is a moth you probably get in your garden, which overwinters as an adult. If you've got any bindweed growing, you'll get these common plume moths, and if you might disturb them through the winter. Now I'm going to show you some moths which come out in the winter, and this starts with actually, that was a scene in June of some trees completely defoliated in the Dart Valley on Dartmoor. So I went back the following December, and you wouldn't think December's a particularly good time for moths, but I saw more moths that night than I've ever seen anywhere. You know, thousands upon thousands, mainly winter moths. And here's some males. I saw up to 100 moths on a single tree. And in the whole wood, there must have been tens of thousands of moths. The winter moths are unusual. You probably catch them in your trap, but you only ever catch males because the female, as you can see, has tiny, tiny wings, so she can't fly. She just crawls up the tree trunk, and then the males intercept her as she's crawling up and mate with her. But the winter moth is probably the commonest of all these winter living moths, but there's quite a few others. This is a mottled umber moth, and the female of this doesn't have any wings at all. And if you just found the female moth, you might wonder what it was and think it was a kind of bug, but it's actually a moth. And there's a whole series of other ones. So there's the scarce umber, again, the male's typical moth, but the female's not. This one's the spring usher, so this one emerges in the new year. This one's the dotted border. Again, these tend to come out more in January, February time, as do the pale brindled beauty moths. And finally, the March moth, which is the final one of these winter moths to emerge. That's the male. And then the female is again, one of these wingless female moths. So quite unusual moths. These are a couple of bits of video showing some predators which come out in the winter to hunt for these moths, which are sitting there on the tree trunks. So there's a type of centipede which lives on trees. It's called an unfortunate mottled umber, and this is a very unusual thing to see, which I think was actually new to science when I found it, which is the fact that woodlice can be predatory. And this poor old male winter moth was being munched by a woodlouse.
Great. So moths during the winter, then there are so many species of them, I suppose, that they've all got different life cycles and cope with the cold either as a caterpillar or as a moth that can survive cold.
Oh yeah, obviously of the 4 life stages, there's a lot overwinter as pupae, which are down in the ground, in the soil, or in cocoons or whatever. Quite a few overwinter as caterpillars, some quite big caterpillars, some tiny. I've got some light emerald moth caterpillars at the moment, which I'm overwintering. They're just a couple of millimeters long. And then others are just eggs, and those winter moths will be eggs, right through the winter, and they hatch in the spring. And then there's others which are, adult moths. So like the grey shoulder knot, which Simon showed us earlier, that will just sit on a bit of bark right through the winter. And I caught a few overwintering moths, which I'll show you tomorrow in the film I got, which moths, some autumn moths which are flying at the moment will just fly this time of year, but some of the moths you're catching will still be around in the new year into the spring. So there's a whole different range of moths. Before I go, I'll quickly mention that anyone down in Cornwall, I see some people want to look for the crimson speckled moth. You've got to get down there quick because they probably won't last long in Britain. And a good place to see them. The only one I've ever seen was when I was at college in Falmouth many years ago. And I saw one right down near the Lizard Point, near a place called Pistol Meadow, which is some old smuggler's path which comes up from the Lizard Point. And there's a nice bit of grass in there. And that's where I saw a crimson speckled. So start there first if you're going down there, and try and get down there this weekend as well.
Well, that's probably a message to our Cornish mothers and Dave. Maybe Dave's going to find his way down there this weekend. So thank you, John. That's brilliant.
See you in the morning.
As always, I really enjoyed seeing your drawings as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you in the morning then. And
I look forward to that.
Yeah, thank you. Shall we move on to Somerset, Jenny? And we are going to see Sarah in Somerset. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. I've set the trap up, but it's very cold here, so I'm not sure we're going to get much, to be honest. But still, I've set it up in a new location as well, which is just literally out the door here, so you can probably see the light from it.
Yeah.
Normally I have it further in the garden looking out on the fields, so we'll see. But it's opposite the big oak trees across the road, so maybe a Mavel de Jour or whatever. So yeah. You never know.
That'd be brilliant. And I'll let everyone know that it's the first time you presented on Watch Moths, and hopefully next year there may be other opportunities. But so we were asking you how long you'd actually been mothing and why you got into it.
Well, I started it only in 2018, really. And I think it's just been one of those things that I've always wanted to do, but just never really sort of bit the bullet and bought the trap and done it. And then I joined the Warwickshire Moth Group because that's where I was previously, and started going out with them, because when they set up the traps, you stay up all night with the traps, literally till 6 a.m. So it was kind of like, you know, going back to my sort of partying days, but just sitting and watching moths. So it was great. And then we moved last year to Somerset, so it's been a bit of a change, really.
Yeah. And have you met up with the Somerset network yet?
No, because of COVID.
Of course.
Yeah, so I last year when we moved in the middle of the summer, so I didn't really I only trapped a handful of times last year. But then this year, obviously, I did it right from the get-go, and I joined the Moth Group, but there's been no way of meeting up, so it's all been sort of just what we can post on the Facebook pages and stuff. So
yeah. And you're quite active on Twitter, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I actually only started Mighty Moth Girl in April. It was a lockdown inspiration, really, because I'm a botanist by trade. That's what I do. Yeah. But moths are my sort of passion, really, as well. So.
Well, and they're so connected to plants.
Well, of course, yeah.
And of course, the plants get their energy from the sun, and hence the energy flows.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been lovely to see this kind of different moths that we get here in Somerset compared with where I was in Warwickshire. Although typically, as I leave Warwickshire, that's when the blue underwings, the Clifton nonpareils, arrive in Warwickshire in their sort of like in their droves, and I don't get one down here. So
well, do you think tonight? Maybe tonight.
Yeah, maybe.
What's your, I mean, I know I've got to move on and round, but and it's a really stupid question, but what has been your favorite moth that you've ever found?
Well, I mean, this year, to be honest, has probably been the best mothing year for me. I've got probably my top two would be actually the lappet, like John was talking about. I'd never seen a lappet before, and it wasn't actually in this garden. I've managed to rope in quite a lot of the villagers into my obsession as well. And so I've been putting my trap in other people's gardens. One of my friends, when I came to check it in the morning, there was a lappet sitting just on the sheet next to the trap. So that was a highlight. And seeing my first ever garden tiger as well this year. Which, you know, you read in the books that it's common, but I hadn't seen one until now. So that was special for me, definitely.
Yeah.
There's a really nice question from Simon for Sarah, asking how the arrival of moths changes through the night.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I found really interesting when I first got into moths was we'd go sort of round to check the trap at sort of maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night, and there would certainly be some of the smaller species. And then it was like, I'd be like, oh, when are we going to get the hawk moths, you know, because that's what everyone's really into at the beginning. And they were like, oh, it's far too early for them. You can almost set your watch by some of them, like after midnight, some of them not till 2 in the morning, you know, and I was like amazed that the next time we went down, that was what time it was. And then they arrived. And then things like the buff tips, you know, the ones that look like the broken birch twig, and the chocolate tip and things like that, they are sort of one of the last ones to arrive in the trap. So you kind of know it's time to pack up. Once you get those arrive in your trap, you're like, you're not going to get anything else now. They're the end of the show. So yeah, it's quite amazing, if that answers the question anyway.
Yeah, no, it's lovely hearing the order of play, as it were. That's great. Thank you, Sarah. And we look forward to seeing what you get in the morning.
Yes, I look forward to showing it with you.
Yeah, thank you. And we now have to fly away. We are going, actually, it's sort of back to Devon a bit, but we've got a little interlude finding out a bit more about silk moths, because in our discussions with everybody, somebody said there's a lady who lives in Tavistock who actually grows silk moths or breeds silk moths or gets them to make her own cloth. And we thought, on our last show, we've got to have her along. So hello, Jane.
Hello, Naomi.
Hello, welcome to Watch Moths. And shall we go straight into your show, to your slide?
Yes, if you like, yes, and I can talk over it. I can talk you through it, or I can talk about other things while it's going on.
Yes. Well, this is brilliant. So if you'd like to show us what you're doing.
Yeah, my interest in moths comes basically from textiles. About 30 years ago, I was able to do a course with another hand spinner who had some tussar silk moths with her, and I was just so fascinated by the way that these creatures just eat and eat and eat and eat, and they produce enough energy to produce their silk cocoon, to power themselves through metamorphosis, and to emerge as a moth at the other end. And what I do is I always let the moths emerge, because I'm a bit of an advocate for the giant silk moth species, because most people think of silk moths as being mulberry moths, and they think, you know, oh, the poor thing has to die in producing the silk that we want. But that's only one species. That's only Bombyx mori, and not all those moths are stifled, because obviously if they did that, the species would come to an end. I'm not interested in Bombyx mori because we've bred them for so many years, so intensively, thousands and thousands of years, that they're not really able to exist without humans. But the wild silk moths, the giant Saturni and various other moths, are still pretty much, these are Bombyx mori on the thing. I do keep them occasionally for educational purposes, but they are allowed to emerge. They're still like proper caterpillars. They still live as they would in the wild, and so do the moths, except of course that they have to live in my dining room because they are non-native species. And at the moment, those of us who are raising silk moths for hobby interest purposes have a dispensation to enable us to import new stock when needed from the countries where they come from. As soon as they start naturalizing, which has happened in the Netherlands, I've seen Eri silk moths naturalized in the south of the Netherlands, then I think we're going to lose that dispensation. We can't afford to let a non-native species out into the wild because we don't know what would happen. My strong suspicion is because they are very colourful moths, because they are very hugely beautiful moths and caterpillars, that some of the seagulls who frequent my back garden would have one for a snack with no problem. Yeah. But you just cannot be sure. So they live inside. They don't need any special treatment. As long as it's not terribly cold, they're all right. And when they've finally emerged as moths, they leave behind this wonderful silk cocoon, which is no use to them. They don't want it. I am fortunate enough to be able to spin and to weave. And so I have the pleasure of the caterpillars, which I absolutely love. I have the pleasure of the moths, which I also love, and I use them quite a lot in design, colours and aspects. And then I get this bonus of this fibre that I can use afterwards. Yeah, and it's just miraculous to me. And I've been doing it for about 30 years and I never get tired of it. Every single time I see someone starting to spin, I think, oh, this is just such a fantastic process.
Yeah. Thank you. That it was a lovely set of images. I suppose I'd never thought that all those cocoons would be boiled up somehow. I don't know.
That's only for silk reeling, which is the very very highly cultivated silk. But because a really good silkworm from Bombyx murray can produce up to 1 kilometre of silk. I mean, that's quite unusual. Yeah. And they spin one single thread. And they start spinning and they just go round and round and round and round, spinning out all this high quality silk, which the silk reeler then wants to take the gum out of the cocoon, because the cocoons are hard, and unreel that thread as it is. Whereas I'm not interested in reeling, so I don't need that. So I get the benefit of all these wonderful wilder varieties, who are still moths as they should be, really. Yeah. And silk, sorry.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, silk is a wonderful natural fibre, because that's my other bandwagon, is natural fibres and natural dyes. Yeah. And it keeps you warm in winter, it keeps you cold in summer. The Chinese used to use cocoons, degum cocoons in their armour to stop the arrowheads going through. It's a miraculous fibre.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for sharing some information. I know it's only 5 or 10 minutes, and I know it's only like a tiny snapshot of all the knowledge you must have, but people who are interested in the silk moths, carry on asking Jane some questions, and you can look up more on her website. Jane, can you share your website, and can you make yourself? What's your website? Or
it's janedean.co.uk.
Okay, great. Then you can look up a little bit more about those moths and what you've been doing. And I love the story when I gave you a ring the first time. I love the story that all the children on your street referred to you as the caterpillar lady,
Yes.
and used to help bring all the greenery to your house so that the caterpillars wouldn't starve. So,
Yes. Very popular with small boys.
yes, yes, including, I'm sure Chloe's children would have popped by, wouldn't they?
They would totally be there. They'd have bought into the whole thing. They'd have been your regular suppliers of green things.
Yes, good. Well, onwards then to Wales. We're going to Wales, where Dan has been setting his trap. And hello, Dan.
Hello everyone, it's been a really interesting evening so far, so thank you for everyone's presentations. It's been really great to hear everyone's stories and passion about these wonderful creatures.
Yeah, well, thank you for agreeing to join our Watch Moths tonight. It's been brilliant for me because I've been putting out feelers of friends and various moth groups and various contacts to try and find people from all over Britain, and your name popped up, so thank you. And are you part of a group down in Wales, Dan?
Well, I'm one of these fortunate people that get to work at university as well, and I'm an ecologist zoologist. I tend to study things very different to moths, so I study horrible things like zoonotic diseases, but also wonderful things like otters. But I have a very soft spot for moths. And I do quite a bit of work on pollinators to do with hoverflies and bees and things like that. So I have a great interest in these things. It's nice to see some faces here of papers and esteemed books that I've read as well. So it's really great to see people joining in on this as a real community.
Oh, good. And have you set your trap this evening?
I have set my trap this evening. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I live in Swansea, but just on the edge of Swansea, in Gower. So I'm right on the coast. So I'm literally 50 meters from the coastline. So I pick up a lot of waifs and strays that come across from the north, from the Devon borders across the ocean. So I pick up things like Devonshire wainscots and Alban wainscots and all these wonderful things that we find in quite remarkably short distributions of habitat. So salt marsh plants and marram and things like that. So I'm very fortunate that I pick these weird and wonderful things up for Wales.
Yeah, and do you show? Do you run any moth nights? You know, when we haven't got COVID and you can share with people. Do you work with groups at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, part of the joy of looking at natural history and science is to share that with people. And as has been illustrated tonight, there's cultural interest, there's anthropological interest, there's artistic interest, there's historical interest. Yeah, moths do touch every aspect of human society, and they're a great gateway to allow people to talk about things like biodiversity and actually see what it means. But I've often found, as some has mentioned on the chat, there's a very meditative process as well. And I run a lot of wellbeing groups, and we do moth trapping. I work with disadvantaged children from some very unpleasant backgrounds, and we introduce them to the world of moths. And you see their eyes come alive as they see what are very common moths, but if no one's shown them to you and said this is a name, then wow, particularly because some of the moths have really great names like the Uncertain, you know, so that captures lots of children's imaginations, and they are quite splendid creatures, so we're lucky to be able to share them.
Yeah, no, it's great. And that I can just imagine. I don't think I have stared at a trap all night, but I do remember on a nature reserve once when I first started out with a group of children around a sheet with a big light in the middle, and the moths brushing past, because in those days there were far more moths than there are now. Well, there seemed to be anyway, and it was a very beautiful and quiet time. We all sat and enjoyed watching them all arrive and land on the sheet. Yeah,
it is. They're lovely things, and when you get, I'm sure some of us might have been lucky enough to see a moth emerging and seeing the wings unfold and to dry out and the veins start to stand up and the rigidity of the wings and the first flutters of the flight muscles, it's a beautiful thing. You're seeing something that's never been seen before on this planet. The emergence of that individual at that point in time. Nature's brilliant, and the more we can say that and get people involved, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Good, great. Well, do you want to tell us anything else, Dan, or shall we move on?
I'll wait till tomorrow, and hopefully I'll have some moths. Either that, or I'll have to rummage through the freezer.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing what you've got in your freezer.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll move on from Wales, and we'll be next flying to the Midlands, to Rutland, where there's Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
And have you been catching moths in the Midlands for a long time?
Only about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But quite a lot last year. This year, not so much. I've decided everyone traps in the summer, so I'm going to concentrate my efforts in the winter.
All right. Well, that's useful, and especially to us, because what are the sort of most common species that you get in the winter in where you are? What might you get?
Well, obviously all the November and winter moths. Quite a lot of December moths, which are pretty good, and I'm going to look forward to trying to get hold of small eggers this winter. Found some nests over the summer around the hedges by me, so fingers crossed.
Yeah. What do you mean? Because you're talking to an amateur here. What do you mean by nests? Do you mean nests of caterpillars?
Yes.
And
they hatch out and form big webs. So they're communal caterpillars. I think these are on blackthorn.
Yeah. Oh,
so
and
quite distinctive.
Yes. And then when they come out as moths, what are the moths like?
Brown.
Or perhaps somebody can on chat put a little photograph or
they're I mean, they are brown basically. They don't get much colour in winter's moths.
No, well, do you reckon that's because of the camouflage thing, and that, you know, in the countryside most of the countryside is browner? And
yeah, good point. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Look, somebody's showing us.
My moth girl has found a picture in a book.
Oh, right, great. That looks...
Yeah, in the book we all have.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I got given this one. That one. Is that another good one? All right.
I don't know.
No, anyway, I'm enjoying using it. So in your area then, is there a moth group like Sarah was saying?
Yeah, there's a Leicestershire and Rutland group, and it's the recorder's just doing I was going to say flora, which betrays my interest, a county moth report, fauna, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
So he's pulling that together at the moment.
Yeah. And
but it's very good. He makes moth traps, which he lets people have relatively cheaply.
Oh, that's
so
good.
Homemade moth traps.
Yeah. Well, we approve of those, and
yes.
There have been, as a result of this programme, there's been a chap who works with us on solar cell cutting sometimes, who's been making laser cut flat pack moth traps. So we're aiming to encourage people to use those at some point in the future.
Right.
But what's your trap that you use, Rob?
It's just a storage box from some cheapo shop in town, but with a Wemlight bulb, 20 watt Wemlight, which does very well.
Yeah, and have you got it out in the garden now?
Yeah, I've got 2 of them out in the garden at the moment. So, so we'll see in the morning whether there's anything there.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to whatever you catch.
Yeah, I'm not. As I say, it's quite bright here and it's quite cold, so you never know.
Well, we've got what we're enjoying about this Watch Moths is that we have got different weathers across Britain. So somebody somewhere will catch some moths, I think.
Fingers crossed, yes.
Fingers crossed, but we can all share moth stories if they don't. We'll find something interesting to
Yes,
talk
well,
about.
as I said earlier to some, I had some lesser wax moths earlier on my bee, because I keep bees. I had wax moths in my bee frame, so I'm afraid they're ex-moths now.
Well, tell us a little bit about what they do. What do wax moths do?
Well, there are two, and they eat honeycomb. Well, they don't. That's not true. They eat the cocoons which the bees breed in, but they can you store your boxes in the winter without the bees in, and if you get a wax moth infestation, they can just destroy everything. So they're not welcome in my bee shed, I'm afraid.
No. Well, here's a whole load of them from Jenny.
Yes.
To give beekeepers nightmares, I'm afraid.
Yes, they're all lesser ones. The greater one, the bantams like them though. We've got bantams. They're quite fond of them.
Yeah, they can be part of the food chain. Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to seeing what you find in the morning, Rob. And thanks very much for agreeing to be part of this event tonight. And
okay, thank you.
Midlands, and we'll see you in the morning.
You will do.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, we're moving on to Ella and Bella.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Good.
You want to tell us a bit about what you've been doing?
So we're up in Glasgow, which is great. It's a lot rainier up here. It's been pretty full-on weather, and we actually our video of our moth trap is pre-recorded. We won't tell you what ended up happening, but you can see, we'll show you a video today of us setting it up.
Our first ever moth trap. We're new to this world of mothing.
Yeah, but excited to be a part of learning more.
Yeah, really excited. So we set it up at Baltic Street Adventure Playground, which is where Bella works, and do you want to talk a bit about it's basically just it was set up by the collective Assemble, and it is a space where the children build the playgrounds along with artists and volunteers and stuff, and it's all about outdoor play. And so I mean, it was Bella's idea, but we thought it would be a fitting place to set up a trap.
Yeah, we're all for we're wanting people to engage with moths and the whole Moths to a Flame project, whatever age and from wherever. So it's great that you've been working with the children in Glasgow.
Action! Hi everybody! This is going to be what we think of Baltic Street Adventure Playground. So, Baltic Street Adventure Playground is a really good place for children that don't have food at home or didn't get a meal at school, because the staff will give free meals out and you don't have to pay for any of it. So Sophie's going to tell you a bit about it.
And we do lots of we get lots of volunteering, and we get people in from different places in the world. So people used to come in and help us in the summer holidays, make the smoothies, because they used to make smoothies in their own workplace. And then we obviously done something, watch it the way, we done some planting, but obviously we're waiting for them to grow again. And we've got lots of animals, and George, got a dog, and
and what have we made today?
Oh, we made a moth trap. What is it?
You know it is a moth trap.
Yeah, so all the moths fly in towards the light, and then they go under the...
get trapped in here.
Yeah, they get trapped in here under the egg boxes where it's all warm. They'll stay for the night, And then tomorrow we can come back and look at them. Because I know everything. I'm not a paleontologist, no.
I bet you wish you were.
Yeah, one day. Okay, so we're gonna look at what we've built here today.
So those bits of plastic.
Bits of plastic, and
do you want to tell us what there is here, Sophie?
Yes.
Go on.
Sure. There's a black box with some bits of plastic and some egg boxes
underneath
with a flashlight.
A flashlight in the middle.
And get a really short and the light, because moths like light, so at night they'll go in and they'll live in there, because like egg boxes, when they're trying to get out, they'll bang their heads, so you can just lie down.
Yeah.
Nice.
Tomorrow we're gonna have a look at them.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Should we get closer?
Yeah, let's do a close up. Look, they're all dirty. Like this.
We're going to put it inside this building.
The fire shelter.
Fire shelter. And they can fly in to the top.
Through there.
I've just given them
Have you learned a lot today?
Yes, I have.
Okay, action.
So we've positioned our moth trap in with the rabbits because there's good shelter from the top of the cage, which means that because it's Scotland, the trap will be protected from the rain. And we'll be able to come back tomorrow and see what we found.
Sorry, there's a bit of a ledge here. There's our moth trap. I think that is going to be successful.
I think so too.
See you tomorrow.
Fantastic.
So hello.
And so you had fun with them, and they like it, and they.
Naomi, Felix has got a question.
Oh, has he?
He loves rabbit. He does. He loves rabbits. What do you want to know about the energy for the moth trap?
Was it rabbit powered?
I wish.
Yeah. It could have been, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
the rabbits enjoyed looking at it though, and
Yeah.
they would have seen all of the moths fly in overnight.
I think they had a party, the moths and the rabbit. I hopefully are having a party right now. I think. Yeah.
So that's good. Well, we'll see you in the morning, Ella and Bella.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, thank you. Our first one, so we're very excited.
Good. Yeah. All right then. Thank you very much. And we've overrun like I thought we might do, because we have so many mothers on board our moth flight up to Glasgow. But it was brilliant to actually get to Glasgow and share some moth experience with some young people. And if you like, that would have been our finale of the Moths to a Flame project. So it all feels just right to finish there. So tomorrow, we will see everybody back here at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we will find out what's been found in all the traps that have been set. Those of you that have set traps that aren't presenters, you can share what you found as well on the chat function and via the Facebook Live. And we've had fun. I hope you all have had watching as well. Jenny, is there anything else we should be saying at this point?
Well, as a little lure back for tomorrow, I thought that these are my daughters, Erin and Zoe, and I thought we might just tell you about the other things we're doing as part of Moths to a Flame. And one of those is an activity pack, which includes a storybook and all sorts. And so just to kind of finish off, I've got a little video of one of the activities from in there, which they completed today. And then we'll be going to Chloe and her boys in the morning to find out about one of the other exercises. So just as a kind of come back in the morning and find out more of about the moths to flame, and also see what's in the traps. So tomorrow morning, 8 till 9 a.m. It's the same link. We'll bring you back in again, and we really look forward to seeing you all. I'm going to press play.
Bye everybody.
We've got our activity pack here from Moths to a Flame, and in it there's an activity pack, and one of those is called Clothes Peg Moths. This is my co-producer. This is Zoe.
Hello, my name is Zoe. I made a moth and it's green, red, orange, and also we cut them and then we put a peg on the back and we put on a piece of paper on the peg, and then we wait for it to dry, and then when it's finished you squeeze the peg on the bottom and then it flaps its wings.
And the Find Another Way to Light the Night is our message, which is at the end of the storybook. So again, if you join us in the morning, we'll be able to tell you more about the Moths to a Flame project and how you can get involved and how you can, let's see if I can, yeah, hopefully you can see me, how you can make your moth to flap its wings. See you in the morning.
See you in the morning, everybody. Sleep well. And
thank you, everybody. I'm going to press leave meeting now.
Ella,
look forward to seeing you in the morning.
And Chloe and everybody else, of which thanks to all the presenters as well. Thank you.